Well, good evening, everyone. I am so delighted to have you back with TV Toastmasters. I'm Joan Lubar. I'm in Toastmasters for Speaking Professionals. And tonight we are interviewing Emily Guerrero. And I've known Emily for quite a while, and she's quite a wonderful young woman. And I'm saying young woman because I'm older. But I am excited to tell you about her a little bit. She's a mom, has 2 children, and what's really exciting is we're going to share tonight about a mom who becomes an entrepreneur and the motivation and some of the pitfalls, some of the tips, and I think you're going to really enjoy this. So, welcome, Emily.
Thank you, Joan. I appreciate you having me on tonight.
Well, I'm so delighted that you're here. And I know you've been in business for a few years now, but tell us a little bit about your background and what you were doing before.
Okay, so yes, this is my 4th year in business, and prior to starting my business, which is, by the way, it's called Clean Living Consulting, I work with individuals and families who are looking to reduce the toxic exposure in their life from all of the things that surround us in this modern culture that are really making us sicker. So before that, for about 11 years, I was a secondary teacher. I taught middle school, language arts, and social studies, and then kind of landed in this business, and it wasn't expected. It just kind of happened, so I can tell a little bit about that.
Yeah, what was the motivation to do that?
Well, let's see, it was after my second child. I have 2 children who are 4 and 6, and so after having my first child, I continued to work full-time. It was never even a question of whether or not I would work full-time or not. I remember fellow teachers, friends, family members would ask me, how much time are you going to take off, and are you going to work part-time, or are you going to go back to the classroom? And I just thought it was so interesting because I never considered not working full-time. So I had my baby in the summer, I took my allowed leave, and then I went right back into work. And I worked about an hour away from where I live, so every day I had a 2-hour commute to get to my school. I would drop my son off at an in-home babysitter, and then I'd go and work a 9 to 10 hour day. So after a year or so of that, I was kind of getting a little tired of trying to balance just being a new mom and working full time. And then I got pregnant with my second child a little unexpectedly. So again, I thought now with 2 children, we definitely weren't in a financial position for me not to work full time. So again, I went back to work for 1 school year, and that entire school year was just kind of miserable for me. I really missed being with my children. I felt like I was missing out on the most important years in their life, and I was just really out of balance, I would say. I felt like my entire life was either working, preparing to work, or recovering from work. And that includes the weekends and the summer that we get as teachers, which isn't really time off. It was just time to kind of recover from the school year and prepare for the next one. So on the one hand, it was really just feeling like I wanted to be at home with my children, but having that financial piece was really scary for me. I didn't feel like we could do it. Both my husband and I are teachers, and so in this world and economy, having just 2 children and living where we live on 1 teacher's salary was not something we thought we could do. So at the same time that this was all going on, I was experiencing some health issues, really severe eczema, and it got worse with stress, and I was really stressed out. And just randomly, I was talking with a teacher friend who asked me what kind of cleaners I was using in my home. And that just started me down this whole path of discovering and learning about all of these toxins that I was exposing myself to, exposing my children to, and in the desire to kind of figure out the source of my eczema issues, I really learned a lot about how toxic all of our homes are. And so everything kind of just came to this apex. I was, frustrated with my working hours. I was looking for a way to stay home with my children. I learned about a whole just lifestyle that so many people were leading, a non-toxic lifestyle that I wanted to know more about. and a business opportunity that kind of presented itself to me too, which was promoting and selling these cleaning products that she shared with me. So I started very small in my business, just deciding to, over the summer, sell these cleaning products, and I quickly just kind of got bit by the bug of business and decided not to return to work the following school year, and that's where it started.
Wow, well you're doing something that you really love, and I think that that's really important. So that made it a little bit easier in your transition, didn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think I experienced such dramatic results from removing these chemicals from my home, and it just helped my skin condition so much, and I wanted to help other people because I knew it was such a major issue, so it kind of tied these different areas of my life together. I was still able to teach and educate people, but on a completely different topic than what I was used to.
So tell us a little bit about why it's so important to be concerned about the toxic chemicals.
Well, at this time in my life, I had already started kind of baby-proofing my home, so I feel like that was my first major exposure to this whole field of information. I was reading baby books, and I can't get my nails done while I'm pregnant, or I shouldn't be using these products or these products. So I had already started, getting rid of some of the things that I had used before. But then when I learned how all of us are affected, not just our fetuses, not just little children, but everyone of all ages are exposed to things in so many different ways. I started learning about, the toxins that we're breathing, that we're putting on our skin, that we're drinking in our water, that are in our homes. It was just so pervasive that I felt like I needed to share that information. And I read a lot. I feel like I'm pretty up to date on a lot of interesting news and what's going on in the world, and it just shocked me what I learned about just basic things that I think most of my friends and my family members were using products that were so dangerous to their health, and I felt a responsibility to share that information and an opportunity to be able to help myself and help others, and also make a living and be able to have a more flexible lifestyle.
So let's talk about what that's done in terms of your life. So how has it changed? And what are some of the pitfalls of working alone as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, well, I think in the beginning it was just so exciting. It was such a new world, and I kind of am an all or nothing person, so when I do something I don't really just dip my feet in. I started this very small business, and when I made the decision to stay home and to start working, I didn't really just dabble. I kind of went all in, and in my mind the vision of Clean Living Consulting, and that I came up with that business name and that idea really early on. I didn't just want to sell cleaning products. I thought of all of these ways that I could educate people and really help them understand kind of a holistic way of looking at their home and looking at what they're exposing themselves to internally and on their body and around their body. So in the beginning, I envisioned having a website and a blog and an email marketing system and logos and brands, and I thought that I would have all of these things in place and ready to go just a couple months into my business, and I didn't know what to do. So my first step was I went to a networking group. I met some women who had been in business for longer than I had, and they all gave me their tips. And, use this person to do your business cards, and, you need this and you need that. I hired a business coach because I thought I need somebody to tell me what to do. And I bought a domain name and a website, and 3.5 years later, my website still says under construction. So I think the biggest pitfall was assuming or thinking that I could just have all these things instantly, that I would just hang my shingle and be ready to go, and it takes time. And it even, 3.5 years, almost 4 years later, I'm still really refining my messaging. I'm figuring out my target audience, and things change all the time in business. You don't just make a decision and it's just going to be that way forever. It's constantly evolving, and so my expectations were much larger than the reality. And at first it was frustrating, and now I just have kind of accepted that it's all a journey, and I enjoy that journey. I enjoy the people that I get to meet. That was kind of the biggest surprise. I guess the opposite of a pitfall was that in education, I had great coworkers and I was around children all day long, but I didn't have much time to just be with other adults and really kind of be in community with other women. And since I started this business, I have an amazing community around me, you included, a networking group that we meet every single week, other women business owners. Joan, you're a part of that group where we just get together and we share the successes and the struggles of what we're going through in business. And it's so much more than business. I've made friends from all age groups and all different types of businesses that have helped me become a better mom, a better wife, a better person, a better business owner. So I just feel like my community has expanded in a huge way.
I think that's awesome. And I think that many of us who are entrepreneurs have found that there's so much camaraderie and support within our communities that it really makes a huge difference. So if you are talking to somebody who is just debating whether they were going to leave their job and become this entrepreneur, what would you tell them?
Well, I would suggest that they, really kind of figure out their financial security first. I didn't intend on starting a business, so before I quit my job, my husband and I really sat down and kind of looked at our budget and figured out where we were going to be able to cut back on things so that we could survive for a year. That was the plan, that we'll take 1 year and I'll stay home and kind of reevaluate. It turned into longer. And so I think that knowing that you're going to have that security financially at first, rather than just quitting a job and jumping into a business, maybe, starting small, so that you can kind of build a foundation and really feel secure, because I think that's a big stress for a lot of us in business.
That's really great. And I think that you've probably helped some other people with just listening to what you've said. I want to thank Emily. I really appreciate that you've come here and helped us tonight. And how do they get in touch with you?
So the best way, like I said, you can go to my website, which will have my contact information, but it says under construction, so that's cleanlivingconsulting.com. I'm also on Facebook, and I have a thriving kind of VIP community called Clean and Polished with Emily Guerrero. So you can just search that in Facebook and request to join, and I'd love to have you join in that community to learn more tips on clean living and have some fun with us.
Sounds really good. I really want to thank you again for coming. And I'm looking forward to checking out that Facebook page. And I want to wish you all a wonderful evening, and we'll continue with another TV Toastmasters next time. Thank you. Well, welcome again to TV Toastmasters. I'm Joan Lubar, and I am your host for the evening, and I'm so excited to talk to one of my very good friends tonight, and she's a very, very special person. Madeleine Eno has a wonderful business called In the Right Place, and she is an editor, a writer, a person who helps you really figure out what it is you want to put together and write about, and then she helps you figure out how to put it all on paper and then use it. So I'm very excited. I've known Madeleine for quite a while, and she also edited my book, so I know how excellent she is in her profession. So we're going to welcome her. And Madeleine, I'm delighted you're here tonight.
I'm delighted to be here, Joan. Thank you so much for asking me.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I'm really excited to hear a little bit. I want to hear about your business and who you work with, but first, I would like you to share a little bit about yourself. I know you're not an Oregonian. You came from the other side of the pond, not the pond, but the other side of the country.
The land.
Yes. The landmass, just like I did.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about where you're from and how you ended up here in Oregon.
Well, I am from Boston originally and lived there and had my career there until 2001 and fell in love, moved out here. right at September 11th, like
Oh.
right a week before September 11th, moved to Oregon up to the Mount Hood area and have been here ever since. And eventually started, I didn't move out here thinking I would ever be a business owner, but I eventually started my business
Really?
in 2011.
So what were you doing before?
I did everything known to womankind, probably. I was, back east, I had been a graphic designer and a magazine editor and a fundraiser and a teacher. I moved out here and kept my job at the magazine for a few years, commuting back and forth to the East Coast every 6 weeks. So that got a little much after a while, so I eventually kind of cobbled things together. I was a bartender and a yoga teacher and a freelance writer. And what I found was everything had in common writing. Like even when I was a bartender, I'd be scribbling taglines for people on napkins, and I would be writing things for the yoga studio. And so eventually I thought, well, maybe I could take this thread that's going through everything and just make it my business. So that's what I did.
All right. Now, tell us how you came up with the name.
I needed a name for a website and thought of that name as
Just came to you.
fantastically interesting as that story is. It's like,
Well.
I think I was thinking of the right place and it was taken, so I was like, in the right place.
And by the way, it's spelled W-R-I-T-E.
Yes,
In case people
yes.
would like to know that. Yes.
Yes.
And then, what were you planning on doing with the business? What did you originally decide you were going to do?
I wanted to help people promote what they did and put it into writing. And I worked for literally any project that came across my doorstep I would do. And I wrote crazy things, including like one guy was a falconer.
Okay.
And I wrote had a falconry supply, a huge company. And I wrote all those little descriptions of falconry. The birds have little boots and hats and leather things. And I wrote descriptions for all those things. And I thank the day I went to a conference in LA and started meeting conscious entrepreneurs who worked online, who were coaches and healers and had the kind of business that a lot of our tribe has today. And that was probably in about 2012 or 2013. And that changed the trajectory because I started working primarily with those folks.
So would you say that they're describe your favorite type of people to work with?
Yeah, I mostly work with women, although that's not completely the case. I work with people who are really have something to teach or a story to tell, and help them get really, really clear on what their unique take on the world is. Because I think a lot of times people think they need to kind of regurgitate what's already out there in a book, and they get a little bit formulaic. So I work with people who are really open to exploring. We've worked together.
Yes.
You know, sit on the floor,
We did.
and map it all out. Let's create a map of what you are really here to say. So people who have primarily, again, coaches, teachers, healers. Right now I'm working with some people, one person who's been a bear guide in Alaska and is writing his kind of memoir plus a call to action to protect the environment. So mission-driven people who are really wanting to share their message but do it in a really unique way that's really them.
Well, I can say you really helped me a lot and brought out so much from my story, so I know how excellent your work is.
It was fun. I still remember your opening scene. I'll always remember your opening scene of your book in that dress.
Me too.
Yeah.
Well, tell me a little bit about your writing. Have you thought about writing your own book, your own story, some of the other things that are
Yeah, I'm
important
almost
to
done
you?
with my book. Yeah, I'm writing a book about telling your story. Yeah, and it's almost done, so it should be coming out sometime this year.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
excellent. Oh,
Yeah.
we have a lot to look forward to. Well, I'm really excited about that. Can you
Thanks.
give us a little inkling as to some of what you're going to be sharing with us?
Yeah, well, it's called working title, Be More You, and it's an ABCs of telling your own story. So it's 26. It's an ABCs, so it's 26 little snippets of types of storytelling, or I find that people often just need a way into their story. When we look at our whole story, it's overwhelming, but if we have a little doorway to go in, it can really help us break it down and tell it make it reasonable to tell and easier to tell. So it's essentially 26 little doorways to telling your own story with examples. And I tell stories of me or people that I know or from mythology, or I'm kind of a story nerd. So many
guru?
sources for stories. Yes, I'm a story goober. Yes.
Well, that's really awesome. So, do you miss the East Coast?
Yeah, I do go back a lot, and I love it. And it has, like you miss it, right? It's just fantastic in so many ways, and I love being there. I miss the sarcasm.
Oh,
Don't you?
sometimes. I have some New York friends that are a little more sarcastic
right.
than I really would like. But no, the East Coast is really a lot different from the West Coast. So tell me what you like about being here in Oregon.
Well, the way I've thought about this a lot, and I think we've probably talked about this a lot, but for me here, especially in Oregon, not the entire West Coast, but the natural history is what draws us, right? We get really invited in and embraced by the wild here and the natural world. And I think the East Coast, it's a little bit more of the human history that draws us, and it's the architecture. And I'm from outside of Boston, the little New England village with the white church, and it's more of an architectural resonance. That's what we sort of miss, is like the little New England architectural details. Or for me, that's the case. So I see here, my soul comes alive here just because of the outdoors. But back there, it's kind of the history and the stories and, family. And I grew up there. I stayed there till I was 39 or so. So a lot of my own stories there.
Ah, so okay.
Yeah.
So now your husband, what does he do? Is he from here that brought you
He's an
out here?
Oregonian. Yeah, he's
Okay.
an Oregonian fella.
Ah,
He works for University of Oregon.
oh,
I
okay.
guess that would make him what kind of animal?
Duck.
Yes, good.
So you don't
Yes.
follow the ducks?
I do
Oh
not.
my gosh.
I do not have any. No, I'm completely neutral.
Well, there's one other thing that I find very interesting about you, Madeleine. You are also a vegan.
Yes.
And tell us just quickly, a little bit about that.
Oh, yes. We share that maybe.
Well, I'm more vegetarian.
You're
I'm
you're
sort of
putting
moving.
a toe in the water.
Yes.
Yeah, it takes a while. The cheese takes a little bit of a time. Yeah, it's probably been about almost 5 years now that I have done that. And I was a vegetarian years ago, and then was pretty paleo, I would say. But yeah, so the last 4 years have been plant-based, which, it's just kind of now just part of things. So.
And how does it make you feel? Do you see
Good.
a difference?
Yes, I do. I feel, I just had a conversation about this the other day with Kathleen, and for me, in work and life, being present, like it is for you, is really important, like really being aware. I work with people pretty intimately, so being really present and conscious with my clients is super important. And I actually find that not being more conscious about eating helps that consciousness a lot too.
It does kind of keep your mind a little clearer.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's not like I was splayed all over the place before, but I just feel like it keeps you, all your energy isn't going to digesting everything. You can kind of stay up
True.
a little more alert. So I think that's one of the biggest differences that I find.
Oh, very interesting. Well, tell us how, I'm sure there's somebody out there that really wants to have that book written, and tell us how somebody can get a hold of you.
Yeah, well, as you said, my website is intherightplace.com, WRITE, and all my contact info is on that. And people can schedule a complimentary call if they want to chat about their book idea or just anything they're working on that they would like to figure out how to put into words.
Oh, that's excellent. Well, I really want to thank you for joining us tonight. I mean, it was delightful interviewing you, and I found out so many new things that I didn't know, so I'm very excited, and I want to thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Always lovely to talk with you.
Well, we're off for the evening, but I am so glad that Madeleine joined us tonight, and I wish you all the best and look forward to seeing you next time. Good night.